The one thing that they have as their best weapon is that in all of those oppressed peoples, there's bigotry. And if they can only tap into your bigotry and prevent you from forming solidarity with the other groups, they will be fine. I've talked about this a lot this year, and I'm going to keep talking about it. Trump went to every single ethnic group, every single minority group, and found what their source of bigotry was against the others, and then used it as a way to keep them all discombobulated, right? Discombobulated, separate, and showing no solidarity. Oh, you're anti-gay? Cool, let me pull on that string. You're black and anti-gay. Now I'll come after you as the black person, but I'll use your anti-gayness. Oh, you're anti-immigrant? Oh, okay, which immigrants? Which ones do you hate the most? Because I got something for you. This is like the best drug dealer in the world. Oh, I got something for all of y'all. Oh, you're Cuban, but you don't like the others. You don't like the Mexicans. Oh, okay, I got something for you too. Why don't you come vote Republican? I got something for you. Oh, you black in Chicago, you don't like the Mexicans coming to Chicago. Oh, I got something for all y'all. Even though I'm gonna send ICE after every single one of you, I'm gonna send some form of ICE to every one of you. My job as your drug dealer, your bigoted drug dealer that deals in bigotry, is to find what your source of bigotry is so that I can exploit it to keep all of y'all from ever gaining up on me, to never unite. And this is what I want to say to my people. Yes, we can say things like, we're always the last, or we're always this, or we're always that, or we got it worse than everybody. We can say that stuff. And there's a lot of relevance to that. There's a lot of it is true. We also have to be very careful. What I just said, though, is not understanding that our lack of solidarity is going to hurt us too at some point. And the reason I think we were the ones that opened the doors for everybody else in this country is because we understood that. We understood the power of numbers.
It is Freedom Friday, and you are still not free.
Well, it's Friday. It's Freedom Friday, and you're still not free, but hopefully you're going to be freer after this hour with Sharif and me. Today, we want to just wrap up the year. It's 2025 coming to an end, and we have had a great string of shows this year that have shown us just the power of consistency, because it's grown. The numbers have grown. People are sharing what we say here. And that's really encouraging, because you never know who's listening. You never know who's going to get something out of these type of conversations. The last few that we've had have really been a trip, because people take the show and take off with it. If you look at the comments of the last ones or whatnot, I never know how much people are getting out of it, but people are getting a lot out of these discussions. This year, we have talked about politics and education, and we always circle back to the same thing. What should we be teaching our young people? How should we be teaching our young people? How can we use each of these moments and these conversations as a springboard for teaching and learning? And the benefit of this particular triad that we have, this threesome of folks that we have here, is one, I'm always curious about the same thing. How would you as educators turn this into curriculum? And by this, I mean whatever issue it is of the day, because it's one thing to argue on the internet. It's one thing to get on here and have opinions about things and talk about world affairs. It's another thing to be able to make connections between the context of what we're going through now and what we went through in the past, and develop some lessons and some lesson planning. And to me, that is the benefit of Freedom Friday. It's great to have conversation. It's great for discussion. It's even better to know how discussion turns into pedagogy. And also, let me always add my thing. Pedagogy, for those of you all that like to focus on how we teach children. Andragogy, for the people who have my background and want to understand how we teach adults, because young people and children live in a sea of adults. And if we don't start paying attention to how adults learn, if we don't start putting money into adult learning infrastructure, if we don't stop the trend of graduating from high school and never reading a book again, if we don't stop this idea that education stops at 13th grade, we're going to have real problems. We have problems right now already because of that. So andragogy, I just want to put that on everybody's radar. As much as we talk about K-12 and pedagogy, super important, but also let's always remember that children live in a universe of adults, and how adults learn is understudied. It's underdeveloped. It's underfunded by far, right? At least during your K-12 years, there's public money spent on you learning. Once you age out of that system, the idea is you're on your own after that. You're on your own. You better find a library. Better hope you get somewhere and get in there and get a library card. Hope you don't have any Hope you don't have any overdue books like Sharif has got, like, fines
No
where they
doubt,
ban
no
you.
doubt.
Yeah.
Forgive the fees. Forgive the fees. I'm
Forgive
on
the
a
fees.
campaign.
Free the books. Data liberation movement. Well, welcome, brothers. It's the last show of the year. We've had some great discussions this year. So, what are y'all thinking right now? How are you ending the year of Freedom Fridays right now? Where are you at?
Well, I'm a little shook just from based off what you said, like once you age out, we pay for it in a different way. Like there's, we pay for it as a society if we don't continue to be thinkers and learners, so we pay one way, it's in the budget on the front end, it's on a different type of budget on the back end. So I think that whole, Islamic philosophy is, learn from you're supposed to be a learner from the cradle to the grave. So I think that's critical. So I'm appreciative and grateful that we have Freedom Friday, which is developed in the different forms over the years, but it's been, I think, a great online classroom. That's how I describe Freedom
Mm,
Friday, online classroom. We have not only the archives, but that you talk about a lot is this idea of like how much uh, you know doors are open because of this. We're all leaving like, oh, well, we need to get that book, or oh, did you read this
mm,
article? Oh, here's this resource. So I think that type of public classroom for the adults, for the andragogy. I love how you teach the people, man. Andragogy, teach the people, teach the people. And it also reminds me of the just some of our heroes. When the Black Panther Party used to have political education, and what does that mean today? How do we continue to have this? In freedom schools they call it imbongi, a
mm,
classroom without walls. That's what this is. This is our weekly imbongi, man. You know what I
mm,
mean? We usually do
mhm.
that for the youth in freedom schools, but it's for adults too. Classroom without walls.
I love that. Ish, how you ending the world? How you ending the year?
And
These
in the
discussions.
world,
Dang,
Yeah.
ish.
I
Dang.
know,
Yeah.
one day at a time, right? I gotta say, 2025 was like one of them years that a lot of things happened that wasn't on my bingo card. And Freedom Friday was a constant reminder that this work is so important to have these conversations, to have conversations that deviate from corporately controlled media and then put it out into the world, into the ecosystem. And I think that, all the conversations that we've had this year has just made me sharper, and also consider what we're talking about much more important. So 2025 was one of them years. I think 2026 is going to be one of them years. And I think we're building those foundations for folks to feel like, hey, I can jump into this conversation. I have an opinion about this. What are these brothers talking about? Especially when it comes to educators, especially when it comes to people who actually care about our youth, not just about a paycheck. I think we occupy a space that very few actually authentically come through and speak to. So I'm just proud to be a part of it, humbled to be a part of it with you all, brothers, man. It's like every Friday when we meet, man, it's just like a resurgence of that spirit. And I'm glad that folks are able to see it and witness it in real terms.
Yeah, I feel like I've watched both of you move. I watch how you move, the two of you. And the interesting thing is that we all have had experiences that can make you feel like you're on your own, isolated. And the thing that we need to model for our people and for everybody is fellowship and coming together so that in those moments when you are facing something that is isolating, that is targeted directly at you, at least you know for a fact you're not on your own. You're not by yourself, right? And this is something that, as long as you all have known me, I probably have said this over and over again. One of the reasons that I know a good number of the people that I know is that when they had a problem, I actually took it upon myself to show up and interject myself and be like, oh, no, 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 no. I've seen this before. If you are going to do God's work, the devil is never attentive to you until you do God's work. And it's not until you are doing something, you're on the right path that you get spiritual warfare. This is just me, one person talking, right? Because the devil will leave you alone as long as you are a knucklehead, as long as you're out there doing all the wrong stuff. It's not until you start fighting for justice and start fighting for the real thing, that you get attention. And when you get that attention, it's meant to isolate you and separate you from your people. And right now, I'm speaking to everybody who listens to this show. I'm talking to you, Black educators. There are many of you who are going to face a time because of how you want to teach or what you want to teach or what you are doing in the classroom is going to spill out and give you a problem that is going to make you feel isolated, like you're being attacked. And in that moment, I want you to know and remember that you've heard this before. You're not alone, because someone else in another state, in another city, another district is facing the exact same thing. And they think they're alone too, right? And once you get a meta God view of all this, you start to figure out, well, wait a second, damn, this feels like there's an intelligent design to this evil that's going on against us. How is it that somebody in Houston school district is facing the same thing that somebody in Philly school district is facing the same thing that someone in Oakland is facing? And why does it happen so often to Black men? And why does it happen so often to Black men who are teaching something that feels offensive to white supremacy, right? Once you start connecting dots, that is the ultimate form of resistance, of standing up and being like, oh, no, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. We are legion. We are legion. And that's what Freedom Friday should actually represent, is the watering hole, the fellowship, the educated kind of source for, no, we're all going to succeed together. We're all going to win together. That rugged individualism that you out there thinking you shadow boxing by yourself like you Mike Tyson. No, bro. You need an army of Mike Tysons for what you're about to face if you try and teach our kids the real thing. I don't want to talk about your individual experiences. I just want people to know that we all three, for instance, have had hit pieces written about us for the good that we're trying to do in the world. Now, if we was out here doing something different, like twerking, call back to the last show for folks that don't know. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm only twerking for elections, bro. I don't care. I'm only twerking for votes.
Stop it. How do y'all feel about this? Just let me ask you about one thing. We came into the year with the new president, and there was a lot of, we don't know what's going to happen. And there was a lot of sense of kind of like, oh my God, everything that is happening is unprecedented. But then we would talk every week and we'd be like, it's kind of unprecedented, but it kind of isn't. Where do y'all fall now on that sense of recognizing that there is a unique evil that's happening to this, but also recognizing that unique evils have happened before and that they will happen again? Not getting lost in the, well, it's no worse than it was before, but not acting like everything's brand new either.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about, when you talk about this a lot, this is about having the critical analysis where you have the ability to have pattern recognition. Ain't the same thing, but the pattern's the same, and it's been, and the thing about it, it's not just this country. It could be you could look at other parts of the world, other time and space. There are things that happen, right? Like there are people who try to exert power over others. There are people who center themselves and try to diminish others. That is a unfortunate human condition that people go through. And on the same side, you can look throughout history like, okay, and what did the oppressed do? How did they educate? How did they organize? How did they resist? How did they maintain their humanity? How did they serve, right? Like all of those things. And, so the context is different. The weaponry may be different. The technology may be different, but the human element remains the same, and if you don't have that level of refinement, then you're going to see it. And yes, it's going to look different. It's going to look different in different languages, different cultures, different contexts, different time zones. So we got to look for patterns, both on
so
the
we probably have to
side
teach pattern recognition too. Then, right?
You got to teach that. You got to teach it. You got to practice identifying it. You got to see where the tricks the tricks are. Well, what's the okie doke? Well, here's the okie doke in that time. Here's the okie doke now. So.
Yeah, man. Because I think of a lot of this is like just remixed nonsense, but it's remixed to the point where we have technology where you can speak to somebody in real time halfway across the world. That didn't exist for our folks a lot of the time, right? Even though news was covered and folks communicated with one another, we're just in this real time situation right now. So for me, when I look at what has gone down this year, it's extreme. right? It is extreme. They took it to a next level. It's like they've read the playbook of the playbook, which was created for them, and then use it against the interest of all the things that folks have been fighting for, at least over the last 4 decades, if not the whole time, right? I would say the whole time. And so when we look at that current situation, for me, it's like, I'm not necessarily worried about Trump. I'm worried about the people that support him and afterwards. Because when I see the conversations going down, if you see folks right now, like not even acknowledging the fact that things cost more. I don't know if any of y'all see those Trump supporting interviews. It becomes like there's like different facts and different ways of knowing in a
Facts
way
are
that is
relative.
detrimental.
They made that a public thing. Like facts are relative, you know.
It's like, and then fake
Alternative
news.
facts.
Alternative.
Yeah, alternative facts.
Yeah.
So when you put that all together, it's like a different world because now they can create the media around that support that. So even in algorithms, I'm sure you're seeing the White House put out, oh, inflation's not 3.0, it's 2.7. And all that happened after that nutty speech that he gave the other day. So if you just think about that, like it becomes much more calloused right now than it's ever been. It's harder to move folks, in my opinion, because they can just rely on their own bubble. At the same time, I think that also creates a situation where folks know that's nonsense and are seeking out alternative ways of knowing, alternative facts, right? That might not be present in the corporately controlled media landscape or in the textbook that's in front of your child at school. So I just love the fact that we're able to disrupt that right now. And so as much negativity that I feel that exists, I'm also optimistic about the possibilities of disrupting that negativity and bringing more people into the fold of making them good human beings and emphasizing that as we approach really what is not going to be ending anytime soon. And that places more responsibility upon us to speak truth to power.
When you two think about like previous times when there was police brutality taking place that was pretty prominent, there was attacks on integration and diversity, and there were attacks on Black ghettos. There was the development of Black ghettos, whatever. And there was always a response from folks in organizing themselves. Check out the hat. Organizing themselves. This is where you got a Fred Hampton. This is where you got a Black Panther Party. This is where you got a lot of different things. So now we have ICE chasing people down in the streets. We have Black Hawk helicopters dropping people into apartment buildings, zip tying people, pulling them out in the middle of the night. And a lot of this feels like a level of aggression and hostility that would have seemed normal to those previous generations, which is why you had a Black Panther Party, right? Do you think kids today, and do you think people today are too soft to understand like what's happening? Do you think they're equally as ready as they were in the past? Do you see a Black Panther, Fred Hampton analog happening? Like not the same thing because that was a different time, but a similar type of response. What's our preparedness? How do you guys feel about our preparedness right now?
That's a deep question.
I know. That's why it's Freedom Friday.
I guess, if you don't mind, I guess I can hop in real quick, Sharif. So like, I feel like, and it's tied to what I was just saying, I feel like there's more opportunities now to organize, right? Just in the circumstances that produced the Black Panthers, just in the circumstances that produced the Deacons of self-defense, you know what I mean? I think folks are actually thinking of like, this ain't right. I know it in my gut, it ain't right. I see it on the television now. My neighbors is on some nut ass stuff. And I think that folks are really like going back to the drawing board and want to know about the past. A lot of these things that we talk about, people are literally just kept away from. They're not taught it. They're not spoken about, right, in polite circles. And I think folks want to disrupt that. And what I see, at least in my bubbled algorithm, that there's many folks starting to step up and speak this truth, whether it's through social media, whether it's through YouTube, right, TikTok videos. And they're really placing it saying like, something needs to be done. something needs to change. Like what has been created now just didn't come out of nowhere. And then it'll be like, well, what do you mean it didn't come out of nowhere? And then when you start going over those facts, going over the histories that exist, you start to reconfigure yourself. So we might not be the people that create what will be next, but I believe that we're part of that catalyst that will create and help the next generation think through these issues in a real way that centers humanity, that recognizes what folks have done up in this point needs to be stepped up in our current context. So that just brings me joy to think about. And at the same time, it's like it's blatantly in your face. You know, when Obama was president, I couldn't argue with a student about like, you know, the questionability of the presidency and power and how it's used in imperial and colonial, neo-colonial interests, right? Now there's no debate because it's just obvious right in front of your face. And be like, well, you know, that's just an extension. Did you know that Bill Clinton did da-da-da-da-da, you know, and the extrajudicial killings, right? That happened during the Obama administrations. Those things are part of a larger story of rethinking how do we situate and position ourselves in our current climate, and it creates eyes wide open.
We got different algorithms, bro. I'm just gonna say it right now because I'm gonna tell you right now. You got the Schooly D gritty algorithm. You got the Hotep adjacent algorithm. Sharif has got a Black Panthers algorithm, and I'm here to represent the Negropean algorithm. And I'm telling you right now, the Negropean industrial complex right now has a message for y'all. We don't know what's going on. It's like, this feels bad. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented. I can't believe that the Constitution is being shredded in this way. So anyways, I'm representative on this show of the Negropean industrial complex. I'll gladly be the representative. And I'm telling y'all algorithm is feeding you too much truth.
Too much.
Your algorithm is feeding you too much like it, because when I ask a question, are we ready? Are we prepared? Blah, blah, blah. You have to think that the Black masses now are no longer what the Black masses were in the past. The Black masses today are very well representative of the Black middle class, the Black bourgeoisie. And the Black bourgeoisie is actually, I want to argue, and you guys can push me back if you disagree, I want to say is the most mainstream of Black economic and political force, I would say. So when you just talked about Obama, you know, message from the Negropean algorithm is tell you, boy, you about to catch it. Don't you mess with no Obama. Don't you be talking about Obama like that.
I apologize.
No, I mean, listen, we got 3 algorithms going on here. And the reason I asked you the question, if you think we're prepared, is when I think about a Hakeem Jeffries or somebody like that and feel like so out of touch, but with the moment, like you are. You got too good benefits. Your benefits are too good. You know, that whole thing Sharif has said a million times, like some people aren't trying to end white supremacy, just trying to improve their position within it. I feel like that's a representative quote of way more people than we give credit to. And all those people y'all talk about all the time in the past out of your algorithm, the Panthers, you know, all that stuff. They all warned you about the Black bourgeoisie. And the Black bourgeoisie, I feel, kind of like took over because all of our revolutionaries got hired at some point. I want to say late 70s, early 80s.
What your dad say? That's the best way to neutralize them?
It was 2 schools of thought. From the accuser's side, the devil's side, that is the best way to neutralize them, is give them jobs with good benefits, golden handcuffs, and then make them start doing mind erasers on all the other stuff. But what the Panther idea would have been in the very beginning, and there was an argument about this back then, was the strategy should have been to infiltrate and double cross. You don't go in it to become it. You go in it to actually take it apart from the inside while other people are working to take it apart from the outside. Right? I think some people got in there and the stakes were a little too good.
You're like, the perch is a little different over here. Like, I see this whole... my whole vision has changed.
They called me sir. They said, sir.
I'm the only one in here, and I actually like it this way. I feel special.
I am special. They called me Mr.
I've never been
Mr.
called that before.
Mr. Nigga. All right. So, anyways, Sharif, we didn't hear out of you. What was your
I
what was
think
your
it's
take on that, though?
complicated. I think there's in some ways we are less prepared. I do think that you know we have a group of leaders who've been asleep at the wheel. I think what was that Amanda said? Black faces in high places won't save us. And I think when you look at Stokely and the other folks who were talking about Black Power, there's some people who took that and just meant political power, and that's different than community power, and that's what they meant when they were originally talking about Black Power. And so you can see it in so many different folks who get in these political seats, and they're not trying to, they're incremental is their biggest win, and sometimes that is the big win, the incrementalism, but that can't be your permanent state, right? You know what I mean? Because when you when you become drunk off of that, then you think, oh, then all I really have to do is do this. And we used to get an analogy in education, like, if the roots of the tree is tearing up the foundation of your house, but you throwing a party every time you prune the branches, you're always going to be in this state of denial. And I think we talked last time about Nellie Fuller when he said, if you don't understand racism, it will always confuse you. So you can be confused thinking, I'm saving this house. Look at this, and it looks pretty. And I look at all this work, and the activity. Thinking that the activity is actual, progress is a problem. And we see that now. Like, we have new tools, but now, rhetoric, and I love rhetoric. Like, I think rhetoric can be powerful, but sometimes people are more satiated with rhetoric than results. Right. And so whether it's manufactured outrage, just online, but at the same time, not actual working to dismantle whatever it is that you supposedly, outrage. What Dr. King said, it ain't just throwing a person a couple coins. Why do you have to do that? What about the foundation is causing you to feel good about yourself to throw a couple coins someone's way, right? And so we have a lot of work to do. And on the other side, the reason why I feel like it looks different now. You don't see this national organization with chapters spreading like wildfire across the country, but you see a lot of folks locally who are doing some really powerful stuff for, with, and on behalf of their communities, right? We saw it in, sometimes there are mass movements where the streets swell with, people doing the work. But, that's the part, I think, the institutions that Dr. Carr talks about all the time. You have to have institutions fighting institutions, and I think that's a piece that we could do much, much better at. Like, how do we build institutions for the next generation and for them? They're going to have to retrofit it, for their new context. But, we got to start handing them the bones, of the institution for them to do with what they needed to do, and I think, and not get suckered into us holding on to it. I built this and I'm staying here till I become the skeleton itself, like you're going to have to drag me out. Like, no, how do we build it and hand it off early? How do we bring them in early? How do we hand it off early? How do we take that back seat and more like a teacher say, guide on the side instead of the sage on stage.
Sage on the stage,
Yeah.
All right, let me ask y'all a couple of tough questions. First one is, you have heard for years that Black America has an enormous amount of collective wealth. If we were to be a nation, we throw this quote around all the time. If we were a nation, we would be the 8th largest nation in the world or something like that. I'm making stuff up as we go, but this thing around, we're not a poor people. Black Americans specifically in the diaspora are some of the most privileged of all Black people in the world when it comes to holdings, like in terms of the economy. We've heard for years that our dollar makes one trip in our community before it leaves. And in other communities, that same dollar makes multiple trips in the same community before it goes out into the broader community. The Jewish dollar makes multiple trips in the Jewish community. The Asian dollar makes makes multiple laps in Chinatown before it heads out somewhere else. And immigrants tend to keep their money together. We don't. If that's true, if everything I just said is true, which we always say it, then why are we always begging?
No, that's real, bro. And it's like, you begging for grants to keep the drawing going. You begging for donations to keep this going. I mean, that is a real thing. But, capitalism won't save us, right? To quote a couple people.
Stop saying that.
No, but like
capitalism is going to save us. What is wrong with y'all?
I mean, like, it's a survival. And I've said this before. It's a survival tactic. You know what I mean? Like, you're just building that up so y'all folks can fund things in order to build the institutions that Sharif was just talking about and maintain them independently, right? And there was tons of institutions throughout history in America developed by Black people that were independent, right? And I think we've lost our way a little bit from that independence a little bit, but I think folks are thirsty for it now. And I think that we just got to be very.
Black folks are thirsty for more Black institutions?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the questions are being asked. Now, again, I just might be in my bubble algorithm.
I was about to say, I'm listening to your algorithm talk, brother. But Negropeans ain't with you, but you keep going with that.
Well, Negropeans are losing their government jobs with their good benefits.
Okay, well, let me give you just a quick example, though. And this has been a little while, but I was on this project about starting a Black bank, and I helped do some of the focus groups and the polling. And we wanted to start a Black bank in North Minneapolis. One of the questions we had to answer is, how far would Black folks be willing to drive to go to a bank if it was a Black bank versus if it was a white bank or, mainstream bank? At about 7 miles, the number of people who drop off and say, I'll just go to a white bank then, was crazy. The number who wouldn't drive 7 miles to go to a branch that was a Black bank versus going to a corporate mega bank. And that to me was shocking. Maybe it doesn't shock anyone else, but it was shocking to me just in that I thought we all had an ethic in us to, if you have a choice to have a Black insurance agent or a Black this or a Black that or whatever, you don't shy away from it, right? But 7 miles was the cutoff for people with cars, for people with transportation. Now, that wasn't in your algorithm, because your algorithm would get on the bus to go if you had to, because y'all just committed like that, right? So I'm talking to my own people right now. I'm talking to Negropeans right now. Y'all got cars, government jobs in some cases, benefits, and you wouldn't drive more than 7 miles to go to a Black bank. First of all, who even has to go to the bank anymore, have to go into the bank anymore very much, but anyways, I didn't mean to derail what you were saying. It's just that I think in spirit, people say that they want these things, and in action, in the voting booth of Black economics, they vote the wrong way behind closed doors constantly. Now, I'm part of this because I routinely now forget that we're supposed to not be going to Target.
You do? How?
I routinely forget.
I know Minneapolis is that's the headquarters, right?
Target, it's like
so you probably got one on every block.
To shop at Target, yeah.
But you got to drive. You got to drive by that, man.
I don't even drive.
Get your stuff from the gas station. You know what I mean? Like,
go to the gas station. That's a high risk lifestyle. You don't sell nothing good in the gas station. That's what my wife tells me. I used to be a big gas station shopper. My wife was not about that lifestyle. She said that's a high risk lifestyle. You want to stop that. So, anyways, that was the question that I was asking y'all. Is just, we say we have everything that we need, and somehow it's not collectivist enough for us actually to make use of it. So,
I think a big part of that is, and again, this American experiment values, the small, sometimes even trivial, what do they call it? Conveniences. So like when that, and I think, but it's not isolated, right? It's the convenience at the same time where you are overstimulated, over busy, overworked, right? Like you have all these things, overly distracted. So then, you make a calculation as far as like, okay, what this limited time that I think I have, then what can I do? And so sometimes the politics of that is removed and is just done off of time basis, and so I think that is a part, and again, that is a part of the hoopla of everything, right? Where you're unable to kind of think and process and slow down and be deliberate and thoughtful and you know engineer your time in a way to just say, hey, this my use of time is connected to my politics. And I think that takes a level of stillness, of consistency, of community to even remind each other. If I was in Minneapolis with you and I was driving by and I saw your car, I'd leave a note on your car outside of Target, like, yo, bro, what you doing? You know what I mean? Like, well,
that's why we would live in different neighborhoods. That's why we could see. You think algorithm is just online. Your algorithm plays into your car driving patterns, where you live, where your garage is, like all that.
Yo, bro, one time when I was younger, I went into Rite Aid, and I remember I couldn't park because this cop had double park. There was plenty of parking spots, but he just chose like, I'm gonna just park in the middle of the parking lot. It was inconvenient. So I remember I had these stickies. So I wrote on the sticky. I didn't graffiti his car. I wrote on the sticky and put it in his windshield. You know what I mean? He was so pissed. I just happened to be out there when he came out. He was pissed, like looking around. That's how you would have been like, I know that's you, El Mackey. I know this was you wrote this note on my car. But yeah, I would leave you a note. That's in your reminder. But I think that's just that pace that we're on. Sometimes, we're looking for conveniences.
What would y'all teach, again, and we always come back to this. You next Monday, you got to take over a class for a friend who calls you and says, hey, I'm going to be out for a couple of days. Could you please take over my class? We're studying consumerism, and we're trying to teach the kids about consumerism as a political act. What would you draw on? Would you draw your sources from? And how would you construct that lesson?
Man, the three things I would do right off the bat is one, Nguza Saba. I would pull, all right, what can we pull from the Nguza Saba around this? What is cooperative economics? How has it looked in the past? How does it look today? And I would tie it to other things like, okay, what is creativity in cooperative economics? What's unity in cooperative economics? What's faith in cooperative economics? I would look at all of those type of things. And then I would also look at like, okay, what is wealth? What does wealth actually mean? I would look at faith-based institutions. Like I remember reading an article a couple of years ago about the amount of money that passed through Black faith-based institutions. I was blown away. I had no idea. You know what I mean? It was just like, whoa. Like, so it is circulating. It's just like, okay, what does this circulation mean? And how can that be used as a lever to do other things? So I think that, man, it's like so many ways. I think the problem would be, not even a problem, the challenge as a teacher is trying not to do too much where it becomes, overwhelming, because you still need the time for the youth and adults to think about and process, and then, okay, how would I apply it, right? Like the synthesis is sometimes the most important part of education. Like, how do you get it? How do you use it? How do you get it? How do you use it? How do you get it? How do you lay it over a different type of pattern to recognize, like, can you apply what this learning is and how would you? That piece sometimes gets skipped. It's just like information. All right, the bell rang, class is over, go ahead, So it's like making sure that there's time to actually process. How would you use this? What does it mean to save? What does it mean to invest? What does it mean to, and I do some of the, and this is, again, I see on technology, sometimes people's math skills, this is where you got to get a kill, because sometimes you're like, yeah, if you make this amount every day and but they end up multiplying the wrong thing. And then people are like, oh yeah, look, you know what I mean? So I got to send you one of these videos. Like, it is crazy. Like the mathematics, some of it ain't mathing.
We all got to start mathing better, right? I mean, but on this topic and issue, what do you think about like how you construct the lesson? Because the thing I'm trying to get to when I even ask the question is, you have $5 that you spend. You're spending $1 on your liberation and $4 on your slavery, right? So when you start small, like, I don't want to overwhelm y'all, maybe just do $1 at a time. But if you're spending $1 in a way that furthers your freedom, but then them four other dollars you spend actually are setting you back a few steps because it's not fair trade. You're buying things that are enslaving somebody somewhere. You are, then at some point someone has to say, yeah, you don't need to start small. You have to get radical.
I mean, I would definitely go the radical route, but in the sense of
course you would.
Of course. And don't get it twisted, like go over, the African worldview, the indigenous worldview when it comes to economics. And, Sharif spoke to that with cooperative economics, collective work and responsibility, Ujima, right? And talk about those types of values and how they differ from the Eurocentric lens, right? Which is extractive, which is exploitative, right? Which is basically if I stomp on you, get what I want from you and get away with it, then I won that situation, right? Which is unfortunately a lot of what's pumped to our youth. So I would lean into that. Then I would look at wealth distribution within our society, right? There is no reason why we're about to have a trillionaire in this society in a couple years. Like a trillionaire, like what does that even look like? Yet alone other people's with billions of dollars. You can't even spend billions of dollars within a lifetime. You spend $1,000 a day or a second. I forget the exact math. I'm not a Kill Parker, so we need to do the math on that.
You're going to bring a kill on.
But that's the truth.
Yeah.
And then challenge them, be like, so why are these things marketed to you? Like one day you can be a millionaire. Like, what does that mean? What does it actually look like to actually accumulate wealth? How is wealth usually measured within our society? And that's usually the house you own. Literally, most people's wealth in this society is the house they own. Then I would look at wealth distribution around demographics and then go over the history of exclusion and also keeping people away from being able to access the same access opportunities to resources. Redlining, and there's many examples that we can go down, right? Opening up a bank account, owning land, you know what I mean? And that's not just racially based, that's also gender based within this society, right? And we've gone over that before. So I would challenge them and lean into probably the way they have been indoctrinated, right? Our children are being indoctrinated with this F you pay me mentality, which is an extension of the dominant group within the society that has formulated this society from, the genocide of indigenous folks to the enslavement of Africans to the continual kind of exploitation of certain groups, whether we're talking about immigrants, whether we're talking about cheap labor, right, around the world. And I would engage them in that type of conversation, pulling up primary sources, looking at what actually wealth looks like. So if only 5%, what is it? 5% of the world of America owns 80% of the wealth or something like that. It's something crazy like that. I wish I had the statistics in front of me, but ask them, is that right? How did it become like that? Like, is this fair? Do we have a responsibility to the other people within our society, not even just in our own group, but in our society or to the world, to not engage in these activities? I would also go over Supreme Court cases where they basically said it's okay to have child labor in another country cultivating cocoa plants as long as it's not in America's land. Yeah, so it just becomes a question like that. And I think we need to do a better job of challenging that. But then I would also be honest about the survival program aspect of being able to still function within this society, being able to still feed your family. Like those things are important. And I saw a recent Vince Staples interview. The dude is brilliant. He's like, you only date capitalism. You don't marry it. You know what I mean? Like I might hit it off and keep it going, but I'm not marrying. I'm not going to put a ring on capitalism because it's just
capitalism's kind of a hoe. So you don't marry the okay. Yeah, I'm following.
You don't wife. Yeah, you don't wife that.
All right.
No,
so
I was just real quickly. I think you said something earlier. I want to just highlight a little bit. I thought it was a pretty powerful statement about $1 your freedom, $4 for your enslavement. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I think the tension is, some of the, what they say is, some of God's favorite actions are small and consistent. right? And so,
Who says that?
hmm?
Who says that?
Oh, that's in
Isn't
the
it?
Islamic tradition, like
See, I'm
the
telling you, if the more you talk to me about Islam, the more I'm like, if we would just catch on to some of this, whatever,
just the
you know,
bacon.
yeah. Listen, if y'all would allow bacon, we might have to like have a discussion. But like it's the ban on bacon for me because you know, yeah. Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It was so funny. I brought this up to a scholar a couple of months ago in Chicago. He said, back in the day, people who struggled with bacon, they said goat. For some reason, goat helped people do a transition from. I don't know
From
why, but
bacon?
he said back in the day, people would, people who didn't eat goat, they were like, if they were just a hog, period, they would start eating goat as like a transition, and that was just for some reason. I don't know why, but anyway, I don't know if it's a consistency or anything because
I
I
feel like
never
that's
had
something
the
y'all
hog
made up to
laws.
tell y'all. I think y'all made that up to make yourself feel better for not having bacon.
Listen, you got to try some halal beef fry, man. That joint is
Right?
banging, but I think just some of it, because all of it, when we think about like radicalism, whether it's Black radical traditions or getting people to do things like cold turkey and this 180, I think it's a tapestry. There may be some things that you can do from a radical lens of action. And there are some things that you might have to do, just on a smaller scale, but you're doing it every single day, right? And I think it's important to, that there's a, kind of almost like a kaleidoscope that your life is, and not try to, burn yourself out, or not try to, by any means necessary, which doesn't always mean like, hey, I'm using the sledgehammer on this. There's some things that, it needs a fine tip paintbrush, and there's other thing using a paint
Yeah.
gun, right?
Let me
Like,
flip that. Just flip it for a second. In that, I smoked for years. I was a smoker for years, and up to 2 packs a day. And the one thing I can tell you that in
oh, you're
my
not talking about
experience,
weed, you're talking about tobacco.
I'm talking about tobacco.
Okay,
which is no
Come
longer
on,
socially accepted.
right?
You know that, right?
Right?
It's no longer
yeah, that's
socially
kind of
accepted.
crazy, right?
It's
Yeah.
not that it's no longer socially acceptable. Is that it's no longer economically acceptable? Because as of today, when I pass by the gas station, I would be paying $17 a day still if I was still smoking. And because smoking is such an addictive practice, I would be paying it. I don't care what I was earning, $16 to $20 a day. I would pay that to keep smoking. The only reason I bring up smoking is because in my experience and most of the people that I know, you have to quit smoking, quit smoking. You cannot wean yourself from cigarettes. There is no slow path to getting off of cigarettes. You can't like, oh, tomorrow I'm just going to smoke 8, or the day after that I'm just going to smoke 5. You can try that. A lot of people try, oh, I'm just going to cut down and then eventually be done. And those are lifelong smokers. Those are people who
Mhm.
get smoking.
If
To
you
really
gradually
smoke,
try
you
to,
got to commit. Yeah,
you got to do
there's
the
no
cold.
gradual. For a lot of
Listen,
people, some of y'all might chime in on and tell me something different here, but it is such an addictive practice, and it is such a instantly beneficial. Like you feel like when you smoke, if you've been waiting 10 minutes for your cigarette, you feel it the moment you start smoking. That's an additional like kind of incentive to not have long periods of not doing it, which means you got to cut at some point. But and I know we're gonna run on time. When I think about this question that I'm giving you all about, like how would you teach the unit? Would you draw on whatever? I asked you about economics, so that's one part of this, right? So that would be like 1 week, maybe, our unit or whatever. I know Ish corrected me last time. Well, some of this ain't one unit. Some of this is like an all year thing. But if you moved on now and said, okay, we did the economics unit, and all of this is the curriculum of power. That's what the overall lesson. I forgot to tell you when I asked you to take over my class. I forgot to tell you that the class is on power. The unit was on this economic piece about Black consumerism and how it's a political act, how you spend your money. Next week we're going to be studying the politics of solidarity, because what the power source is going to do, the power system is going to do, is to try and divide you from other oppressed peoples. And that's where, when we talked last week about blacks having a negative attitude about Somalians, right? Like right now, some of us getting roped into the anti-immigrant stuff. Well, ICE ain't coming for me, whatever. All of that to me sounds like it needs a unit. So help me understand like that next week when y'all come in, you're spending a weekend designing your class for that week around solidarity. What's the unit on solidarity and the political powers? What are we teaching young people? Don't get locked up in that Black versus African, immigrant versus the other kinds of immigrants, all that stuff. What's your unit? Who you drawing from? And what's your unit look like on solidarity as a political, I don't know what you would call it. Like, what would you call it? Uh, Solidarity as a political means of survival and winning.
I mean, that's a heavy one. Number one,
See, I feel like
because
I got all kinds of heavy ones.
it's heavy today, bro. Like I should have been studying a little bit more before I stepped in. Nah, but and I referred to this as COINTELPRO 2.0 last week, right? What we see with some folks who claim that, right? Some of our folks who claim not caring about immigrants, how it doesn't affect them, how Black people just need to be worrying about themselves in this society. And there's some truth to that. Don't get it twisted. Like other groups have left Black people hanging more consistently than Black people showing up. That's the facts. But when it comes to like building solidarities, I would actually start with COINTELPRO, the original one. If you looked at the 5 goals of COINTELPRO, some of them goals are to discredit Black radicals, right, to Black liberals, right? Another piece would be like to neutralize any type of rise of what they call the Black Messiah. Well, how do you do that? You have media control, you can also demonize people. You know what I mean? Like I think about the fact nowadays, people like talk about Martin Luther King cheating on his wife like it's a known fact. That didn't come out until the 1980s when they were trying to make Martin Luther King Day. So like, you don't know that because you're accepting whole line and sinker what other people are telling you about other people. And I think it's very important to emphasize those historical solidarities that we can point to, right? How the indigenous folks and Black folks did work with each other, Seminoles, right? Help maroon communities, help people survive. But then at the same time, I would go over how the Buffalo Soldiers were used by the US government to neutralize indigenous tribes out west, right? And it's a complicated, non-type of linear story, but then it I can always point to during the same time period, there was solidarity. I can point to Black families driving hundreds of miles to visit their neighbors who were Japanese in incarceration camps during World War II to bring them food and to show familiarity and solidarity with them. There are so many examples of that, but that's not what's emphasized in the storylines in which we're indoctrinated with. It's not emphasized in this linear type of historical narrative in which is really, quite frankly, shoved down our throats. So like those type of complicated nuances need to be discussed, but they also need to be read about first person narratives of people going there, but then also look at other primary sources and question, well, what positionality did this person even speak from? Why would they be focused on this subject? Are there other primary sources that dispute that and that go against that provide a different narrative from the same group? So I just finished a great book by a local Philadelphian, Rashida Phillips. She wrote a book called Dismantling Master's Clock. And towards the end of the book, she goes over the importance of trans-temporal time capsules. How Black folks, they're starting to find them under statues and places that Black people built from like the 1850s, 1860s, where Black folks would actually start a time capsule to capture what their view of what was going on at the time was happening. And that usually deviates from the mainstream narrative. It also brings in historical context that does not exist, that wasn't carried on from the mainstream, Black or white media. And it kind of disrupts kind of this idea that there's this singularity that exists. It's solidarity is a much more deeper thing. And I think that once that's emphasized, and then the common ties that are usually put together, I think students can approach that content with a much more, eyes wide open again, recognizing that there are situations where that has been used against folks, especially against Black folks, right? When we're talking about immigrant rights and everything like that. But then at the same time, Black folks are the reason why immigrant rights exist within this society. The solidarity with Cesar Chavez and the Black Panthers, you know what I mean? Like the solidarity of Fred Hampton and the Rainbow Coalition. Like it goes on and on and on. But those are the stories that we need to emphasize. But we also need to also uplift the pitfalls that are associated and also bring it into the modern context about how those differences can be used against us and our interests in order to benefit the groups and powers that actually control this society.
Yeah, no, I think that's I mean, there's so many great lessons in all of that ish. I've not heard of that book, so I'm definitely interested in reading that and learning more about these time capsules. Which is interesting because it sounds different than just the writing that people were doing at the time. This is like that's pretty dope to even think about that. I think I would probably do a side by side again for folks who aren't in education. You have two things like right next to each other. Just seeing like, okay, what are the consistencies? Because I would look at it like this solidarity. I would look at it. I would want them to analyze solidarity from two angles at least. One, how do people? Why do they come together? Like, what's the root cause of that? And then how do people come together to take from you, keep you away from right? Like your oppressor, or whatever that situation is, they got solidarity too. So what are they unifying around? What banners are they rallying around? And why? What might their why be? What did they say their why was? Right? And whether it's the Confederacy, like what people say it was about now. But what did they say they were rallying around? What did they say? This is our banner. This is our mission. This is our vision, right? And so, like I wouldn't want them just to look at the resistance and the solidarity, and that I don't want them to look at their ops. Why are your ops, displaying unity, and how? And what benefit? And then I would trace it even further back, just where it may not necessarily be solidarity in the moment, but just showing, like, as Ish said, how systems are used. You take, and I forget these folks' names, but, this is like historical, where these indentured servants, one black, one white, was a couple of them.
John Punch,
black indentured servant, and the white one, when they got caught, so indentured servant, you're supposed to serve 7 years, 14 years, whatever it was, and then you are free. You can go about and do your business, start your own life on your own terms. But these indentured servants, because whoever the owner of this land was so harsh and oppressive, they were like, "Yo, we out. We're gonna run away. We're gonna break this, contract, so to speak." Now, some of them weren't really contract, right? You were just like hemmed up. But anyway, they were going to leave, which broke the terms that this person had over them. When they ended up getting caught, the white person had a couple years, let's say a decade added to his sentence of servitude. The black person was told he is enslaved for life. He's indentured for life. Same judge, not two different courts, not two different territories. Same judge said, "John Punch, you are now indentured servitude for life. White man that ran away with you, y'all plotted this together. I'm adding years to you, but then after that, you're still free." Right? And so from there, that's one thing to analyze, like, okay, where did the judge theoretically draw solidarity to, with, and why? And then you could do that same, a couple of days later, he's doing that same pattern with land ownership. Okay, if you just got here as an immigrant and you get hired as an overseer, so to speak, or a patty roller or whatever, right? Like, you don't own any of this stuff. The Constitution wasn't written for any of you, but how do you tap in and build solidarity regardless? I don't have that power. I don't have that land. I don't have the finances, but what can we rally around? Right. And so all of that are opportunities for them to, again, pattern recognition. Okay, is there anything similar now? Is there anything similar today that people are rallying around that isn't, that they would actually, if they chose better, they would actually make progress?
Medicare for all.
That kind of brings up a couple of things for me. Like, one, I would ask about John Punch. Did he have a father in the home? Was he listening? Was he listening to hip hop?
Was he working to? Was he lazy? Right?
I mean, I have
He
questions.
just didn't want to work.
I just have questions like, you say it just was an unfair, like court hearing or whatever, but I just have questions. I just want to know. And boy, that's a powerful story. I made note of that. Go back and read that because that's the type of thing when I ask the question, what should we be teaching young people about patterns and about how these things work and whatever, that actually is not just the one story about John Punch. That's a story about over time, that situation compounds, and that's how we end up in very different places. That's how we end up in very different places today.
Yeah. And what's the foundation of that for mass incarceration, today, or the difference in sentencing and all the punitive aspects of, tied to, your melanin, right? Like at the end of the day, tied to your melanin and the people in power's mindset about your melanin.
And I just want to add two on top of that real quick, just addendum pieces. The 1705 indentured servitude law in Virginia, when they specifically said that Black people are now servants for life, and then the indentured servants got land, got like a gun when they were done, and it was explicitly tied to race. I would also add that in to extend, like that's after John Punch.
And I think Punch was in Virginia too, right?
Yep. And these were laws that they built upon each other that eventually became what, influencing common law in America. But I would definitely bring that up. And then I would also bring up Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis Wheatley is celebrated in this society as being the first, Black woman to publish a book, second in America, right? Like all those things. Many people don't know. After she published that book and she got her freedom, she died in poverty 11 years later with her 2 children dying because she was unable to take care of them. So like, why is that? If she was so brilliant, if George Washington was so impressed by her writing, like what happened? Is it because she's Black?
I think we talked about this before.
Black
but
artist
Thomas Jefferson
today
tore her
too.
down. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, no, I do. I mean, Jefferson was trash.
Like he just savaged her, with words. Well, this is interesting. We should wrap up now. One of the things I want to say is this, to me, is the constant question of Freedom Friday every week is, how do we turn this into a unit? How do we turn this into a lesson? How do we not talk about these things randomly? How do we talk about them in terms of, okay, we know when we're done talking about this, the goal of this is to end up in a way to teach around this, which for me, my kind of amateurish way of asking you guys the question is, okay, where are the sources? What will we draw from? What would you draw from if this was your unit that you had to talk about, teach? Because it helps me learn by what you choose. Like if you say, I would draw from these primary documents, I would draw from these specific stories, these concepts. For me, it actually starts, form in my brain and hopefully listeners and others, a teacher's brain. Like, that's how we would talk about that at home. Okay, I got it. I feel you. I did want to add one point because I'd be remiss if I didn't answer my own question, this last part around solidarity. The one source of most of the world's oppression that is justified by study and research and whatever is one demographic that has solid control over the global systems of everything. And in the United States, the global systems of everything. And that group has pissed off so many people and so many different demographics that you would think it would be fairly easy to take them over because they done pissed off everybody. They done impressed every kinds of group of people. The one thing that they have as their best weapon is that in all of those oppressed peoples, there's bigotry. And if they can only tap into your bigotry and prevent you from forming solidarity with the other groups, they will be fine. So I've talked about this a lot this year, and I'm going to keep talking about it. Trump went to every single ethnic group, every single minority group, and found what their source of bigotry was against the others, and then used it as a way to keep them all discombobulated, right? Separate and showing no solidarity. Oh, you're anti-gay? Cool. Let me pull on that strain. You're Black and anti-gay. Now I'll come after you as the Black person, but I'll use your anti-gayness, right? Oh, you're anti-immigrant? Oh, okay. Which immigrants? Which ones do you hate the most? Because I got something for you. This is like the best drug dealer in the world. Oh, I got something for all of y'all. Oh, which immigrants don't you like? Oh, you're Cuban. but you don't like the others. You don't like the Mexicans. Oh, okay. I got something for you too. Why don't you come vote Republican? I got something for you. Yeah, I got something for you right now. Oh, you're black and you don't like the Somalians. Oh, you're black in Chicago. You don't like the Mexicans coming to Chicago. Oh, I got something for all y'all. Even though I'm going to send ICE after every single one of you, I'm going to send some form of ICE to every one of you. My job as your drug dealer, your bigoted drug dealer that deals in bigotry, is to find what your source of bigotry is so that I can exploit it to keep all of y'all from ever gaining up on me, from getting all of you to never unite, right? And this is what I want to say to my people. Yes, we can say things like, we're always the last, or we're always this, or we're always that, or we got it worse than everybody. We can say that stuff. And there's a lot of relevance to that. A lot of it is true. We also have to be very careful. What I just said, though, is not understanding that our lack of solidarity is going to hurt us too at some point, right? Like it'll come back and bite us, right? And the reason I think we were the ones that opened the doors for everybody else in this country is because we understood that. We understood the power of numbers. Of course, we're going to vote for the pro-immigration bills. Why would we do that? Well, we would do that because it beefs up the numbers in solidarity, right? Now, we didn't expect people to come here and turn on us, right? And, flip it, whatever. But still, we did our job. We did what we were supposed to do. Anyways, my last word of the year for Freedom Friday is I've had a wonderful year of staying sane on Fridays because it has been an insanity building type of year, a year where it was meant for us to go crazy, and coming here on Fridays has been very helpful and not going crazy. Thinking about these things methodically, like an educator, like a teacher, is what has kept me sane this year. So I want everybody listening to this know this is the last of this show. This is the last of this particular version of the show because 2025 will be over, 2026 will be starting, and we want to make good on all of the audiences that we have brought in over this year. This year has been an extreme year of growth for us. We have seen a lot of people come to the table, come to the show that we had never expected. So we're going to make good on that for next year, and we'll have a big announcement about how the show will be different next year, and it'll be moving and changing next year. But final words from you two as we close out the year. What's your final words?
Yeah, mine's is, I'm just grateful for, I think you can build community everywhere. Y'all are my brothers. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I learn from y'all. And I feel, inspired, invigorated, emboldened, during these conversations, but also during our other conversations, during our group chats, during our like when we see each other in person, it's always even more, I'm grateful, man. I feel, that, when you have like those kindred spirits, right? Like my the old aunties used to say, all kinfolk ain't kinfolk and all kinfolk ain't kindred. But with y'all, I find that level of kindred spirits, which I think is just a different level. And I've often talked about how Freedom Friday reminds me of my parents, my relatives, my teachers. So even just the small tangents, like when you talked about that cold turkey on cutting things, smoking off, it reminded me of my great grandma. I lived with her when I was in high school. Somebody unfortunately broke into our house. I moved in as a junior at the end of my junior year, 59th and Race, 5929 Race Street. But I remember before that, she walked into the corner store and saw that cigarettes had gone up a nickel. And she quit on the spot. She's like, I'm not paying that. This was like less than like $1 or something. Like it was like, I was just like, I was like, well, if you could quit over a nickel, why didn't you quit a long time ago? You know what I mean? But when you said that, it made me think of, Sophronia Dickerson said, no, I'm not paying that, So, God bless Sophronia Dickerson, lived to be 100 plus years old. And, just again, that determination anyway, just that, even the tangent reminds me of just things that I experience, people that I love. And so that's a great place to be reminded of the folks who took care of you in different ways when you're in conversations with people who've never even met them, but you remind them of those. So that's another just level of blessings that I'm grateful for.
Yeah, man. I mean, what you just said is going to make me tear up, bro, because I feel the same way. I was going to say, I love you, brothers. It's not, men ain't supposed to say that to men, but, there's something real that we're making. I know, no. When I say that, I'm talking about the way we've been indoctrinated.
Right.
And the fact, like Chris, you do such a great job, like, you know, challenging us to think outside, and I've seen you challenge yourself with this, and Sharif, like, you're just like a wellspring of wisdom and insight that like causes me to think of like I need to step my game up. And you know, I feel that with both of y'all. And you know, I think as we move forward and continue these conversations, I'm grateful for like the foundation that we're building. Because like I don't know about y'all, but I ain't planning to go nowhere unless y'all give me a call and be like fall back. Um, but like that's the real type of conversations that I feel like we can have, you know, and bring up ideas that, you know, unfortunately, I wish I had more conversations with people, because I don't know about y'all, but when you talk about some of the things we talk about to people like in real life, they just tend to shut down, or they say things that they think that you want to hear. But I know what you brothers is like listening, taking it in, reflecting, and then also then bringing it back to a real conversation. So I'm super blessed, super grateful for y'all, man. And, you know, 2026 is going to be one of them years, but I think we're ready.
We're definitely ready. Well, I appreciate y'all, brothers. This is like one of the best parts of the week. Every week is the most educated part of the week for me. And I hope that we are extending that out. The thing about having a platform and amplifying it to other people. I hope other people are finding that to themselves, because I take very seriously this idea that people feel alone and by themselves and what they're experiencing in their districts, their classrooms, in their journey of professionalism, in their communities and whatnot. I take it very seriously that people feel like they're the only ones sometimes. And I just need everybody to know that you're not. That's why this show is important, I think, for everybody to have. So, as always, this has been another episode of Freedom Friday, and you're still not free, but hopefully you are freer after this hour with Sharif, Ish, and me, and we will see you in 2026, bigger, better, stronger, blacker, and everything. So we'll see y'all next year. Peace.